Hey, good morning. Today is Thursday, yes, September 14th. And yes, we all better have our coffee. It's 10 to 5 here in New York, upstate New York, deliverance country, where the snow, before too long, will be coming full tilt at us. I've been looking at the fuzzy caterpillars. The old wise tale would say, where the color of the strips would dictate how long the winter was. And we're seeing a lot of them that almost all one color. They're not that split up. But does that mean we're not going to get a winter? No, we always get winter. I actually kind of like winter to a certain extent. I like it in the beginning, but it kind of wanes on you as it goes. Kind of like summer, you can't wait for it. But then when it's frickin' 100 degrees out and humidity's high, you're like, oh, I can't wait for winter. Yeah, that's how we are in upstate New York. We just kind of can't wait for one and then get bored of it. Move on. So what's today's subjects, guys? Well, one, I like to talk a little bit about, bigger risks, bigger rewards. And when it comes to pricing, if you're going to focus on, and I know it's working for some of you guys, and I'm glad that you guys were honest with us and pointed it out. But if you're working towards just getting into the repair and maintenance side, and you can build a strong clientele, I can tell you from what other guys are telling me, it works. Concentrate on what works for you and in your locale. But I want to talk about that. And then lastly, balancing home life with work life. It shouldn't be complicated, but sometimes it does get complicated. And this is probably geared more for you guys that have got kids, that are younger. One of the big things that, I can talk about stuff that how it affected me and looking back, what I would do different, and so forth. And I think I've said in one of the other videos that when I was younger, I thought my main purpose was to protect and to provide the income so that my family would not go without. We didn't have the best of things, but we didn't go without the basics. We had the food, clothing, shelter, and sometimes the shelter wasn't as great as I would have liked it to be. And I worked hard. At one point, I was working 3 different jobs. Well, how do you work 3 different jobs? Well, working security, and I was a canine handler. Actually, I was a trainer for canines. And we were patrolling, different businesses, large businesses. I did that in the evening hours. I was also a dairy farmer, and I did those during the daylight hours. And at one point, I was also a bus driver for the local school system. And each had their own reason why I did it. The driving the school buses, I'd never recommend that to any of you. Kids are crazy. More than once, I've had to turn that bus around, take them kids back to school. Someone put gum in the hair. Someone got this. Someone did that. Mr. Edie. It plagued me for years, in my thoughts. I hear these kids. But I did it because we needed a decent health insurance for me and my family. I didn't have health insurance through the security firm that I worked with. That was a 1099 and straight hours, work as many hours as you want and get paid for those. And the dairy farm, we weren't making enough milking cows to get good insurance. But one of the things that I wasn't doing that well was I wasn't balancing home life with my work life. I thought the better the stuff that I could provide, the better father I was, the better dad I was, the better husband I was. When in fact, all they really wanted was my time. But my time was being eaten up by school bus driving, on the farm, milking cows, getting the barn clean, doing the hay in, feeding cows in the winter months, and then in the afternoon, evening, working security with canines. And I think I've told you guys that one year, at that point, I had dropped to 2 jobs. And at that point, I was still a dairy farmer, but I actually went to work for the mining company that we were providing, security for. And at that point, when I say security, the mining company, the people had gone out on strike, and I don't blame the guys for striking, and I got along with the strikers that were out front. They understood that I was there to feed my family, and I wasn't there to take their jobs, and they got offered a number of times to come back to the table, and sometimes you can, screw yourself, basically. And it wasn't the members that screwed themselves. I think it was the actual union that was representing them that screwed themselves. But they ended up becoming a non-union shop. And some of the guys came back. But I got hired on there. So I was working full-time for them, and I was also running the farm. And I can remember this one Christmas that we ended up getting a nice bonus check. So the wife and I decided we'd give the kids the best Christmas ever, because we never got much growing up. It was enough. Don't get me wrong. I was not abused or, my grandparents took very good care of me. But, you have that thing where as parents, you want your kids to have it better than you. And I think that's kind of screwed us in the end, because each generation has done that. And now nothing is expected of the kids. When my kids were young, they went to the barn. My daughter fed calves. My son helped out with the milking in the hayfield, driving tractors and stuff like that. And everybody worked together. My kids got paid for doing their chores because they were working. It wasn't their choice to be a farmer. It was our choice. But this was what we felt, and I still feel is a good, healthy way to raise kids. Instead of being in front of video games and, not coming out of their room because they're on Snapchat and so forth. But that year for Christmas, we ended up going out and splurging on, it was a bounty for a king. And we couldn't wait for Christmas morning. So my wife and I got up fairly early on Christmas morning and got everything out. It took us an hour. And we both were sitting at the kitchen table. And that was a little ways from the living room. You couldn't see into the living room. It was this old farmhouse, you know. You had the bathroom, bathroom, kitchen, and then dining room, and then the living room was off the front. It was kind of sectioned off. But we heard the kids get up. And within 15, 20 minutes, you could hear the laughter. My wife and I were gleaming at each other of how great we did and how great it turned out. So we each grabbed our coffee and walked into the living room. To our surprise, the toys and stuff that we bought them were over here. But the kids were having a blast with just the boxes that the stuff came in. They had built a castle, and they were play rolling, and they were having a blast over the freaking boxes. That taught me a big lesson that kids don't need the best of everything. They don't. Had I just supplied boxes, they would have been just as happy. A few trinkets, and get the big boxes so they can build the forts and stuff. So when it comes to balancing your work life and your home life, if you're a business owner or if you're an employee, there's two different ways to do it. If you're the business owner, you're going to be putting in more hours than most employees if you're doing it right. But what I'm telling you is, don't let the time go by without being involved with your family. And I'm not just saying participation where you show up, actually being involved with your family. And that could be your wife, your kids, it could be your siblings, it could be your parents, your grandparents. You need to be involved. And that's one of the things that I've seen less and less and less of. Is it used to be on Sundays, everybody got together at Grandma's house for Sunday dinner. And everybody chipped in. I can remember, my parents bringing stuff to Grandma's house, and we'd all sit down and have a meal together. And actually the meal would get started early, and then we'd all go to church from 11 to 12. No, 10 to 11. From 10 to 11, we go to church. We were Methodist. I'm still a Methodist. And we'd sit down together and have a meal. So I can't stress enough that you need to find that balance that works for you. You don't want just a participation trophy. You need to be involved. And you need to help support your better half if you've got kids. Work together. So that kind of pushes us into the second of three parts here. The third part is going to be on the repair and maintenance side. I started out this video with saying, big risk, big reward. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I've been trying to stress to you guys that are starting out or maybe reorganizing that you want to keep as minimal debt as possible. But even that comes with risk. And what I've found over time, most often, the bigger risk that's involved can also be the bigger reward. But I'm not saying don't take chances that you can't afford to take. That's not so. Let me explain to you what I'm getting at. When we first started selling parts online, we were selling on eBay, and it was basically a glorified Craigslist at that point. And later, it ballooned into Amazon. So we had 2 venues. Plus, we had our own website as well that we were selling from. Actually, we had 2 of our own websites that were e-commerce. One was the farm site, and one was the lawn and garden site for repairers' parts. And then as time progressed, Sears got a hold of me and wanted to know if we would be willing to sell our wares, our parts, through them, and they would take a percentage. So, absolutely. So then we had the 3 venues, and then Walmart came to us and said, would you be willing to sell on our venue? That gave us a 4-prong approach with the venues, and then we had our own sites. And when we first had started out, we were trying to throw everything at the wall and see what stuck, to see what would work best for us. And at that time, we didn't have a lot of extra money to work with, because it was being, if this person bought this, I bought 2, put 1 on the shelf because I knew that it would sell. So I was putting everything back into the inventory. And as time progressed and competition started showing up, we were doing really well. And what I found was the higher price ticket stuff yielded the most money. And it wasn't just in what I could get out of it. It was, if I could sell product A for $40 and make $10, $15 on the deal, and it would take 1 employee a few minutes to get it printed out, packaged, and ready to go, versus having 40 $1 things and making 30 cents a piece, and then having an employee spend a couple hours trying to get the 40 small ticket items packaged and ready to ship. You see where I'm going with this? A lot of the people that came after us that were trying to copycat us couldn't afford to take the risks on the bigger stuff. See, I don't care what anybody tells you. When you're selling on those venues, you're at the mercy of them and their customers. And they will point blank tell you that the people you're selling to on our venues are our customers, not your customers. So in order for us to sell to their customers, we had to abide by a certain set of rules, and that was, customers always right, and, be ready to take returns and have cases brought against you, etc., etc., etc. So at that point, with more outfits coming online that were trying to do what we were doing, see, the thing is, see, I got a bachelor's in IT. I think I've mentioned that before. But if it weren't for that and my background and my programming and my e-commerce experience and developing websites and databases, we could not have afforded to go out and hire someone to do what I did in the beginning. We couldn't. There was just no way. I mean, at one point, I had 5 overseas employees working with me on updating websites, adding products, to our own stores as well as to the online venues, eBay, Amazon, Walmart, and Sears. We sold on a couple other Bonanza and stuff like that, but they weren't that big a outfit. So I gave us the foot in the door. And that's what these other copycatters were coming up against, is they didn't have the experience to do what we did. So they were still kind of struggling to get their feet underneath them. But one thing I noticed is that with having more competition, it meant we had to concentrate more on where can we make the best money out there. And this took time to get to that point of where I had a comfort zone with cash in the bank, cash in the savings, and cash in inventory that was paid for. What I ended up doing was I started killing the listings that we were only making a couple dollars on. And it was taking too much time for employees to package, ship, and so forth. Because that costs money too, right? And we started focusing more on the bigger ticket items. So why is that a bigger risk? Well, it's because it goes back to their customers. You're going to have returns, and then you're going to have people that are totally dishonest and say that the PTO clutch that you sent them, the electric PTO clutch, was faulty, and they would ship back their old one. Yeah, they come in all shapes and sizes, folks, especially if you're dealing online, because people aren't connecting with you physically. You're just another the big man that you have to take them down and stuff, and then we can afford to take hits. But yeah, they would send back their old ones. So we had to have enough comfort zone. It wasn't if, it was when and how many of these returns we were going to get hit with, and trying to balance it out. And for what returns that we did have, it was still way more profitable for me to sell a PTO clutch for, let's say, $250 and take the same amount of time it would take to box something that made me $2. So when I say the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward, as you get your footing underneath you and you start to grow, you need to start concentrating on the areas that bring you in the most money. And the areas that bring you in the most money into your business so it can grow usually comes with a higher risk than just staying where you're at. So I wanted you guys to understand that I'm not telling you to risk your whole business. Absolutely not. You have to weigh it out and look at things that you're doing that's not cost effective, that you aren't making enough money where if you were doing that same amount of time over here, you could make $50 versus $2. You see where I'm going with this? So each of you guys are going to be different. But as you start to build and you can afford and you have some savings and you have some money in the bank, start looking at ways that you can grow up to take your business to the next level. And you can concentrate now on stuff that will bring you more income per time spent. I hope you guys understand that. If you have questions, let me know. And I can go more in depth on it. But I'm just kind of skimming it so that you guys know that I'm not saying that to take bigger risks and lose the whole business. No, don't do that. Keep your debt low, put your money in your savings, your checking, get your comfort level, and then start looking at things that'll make you the better money and streamlining and getting rid of the stuff that's not making you hardly anything at all. So that brings us to the last part, and that is TJ brought it up. And I'm so thankful that he did. And it gave me time to start looking at it to see if it was viable. And it's very viable, especially the way he's doing it. It all goes back to real estate. How much real estate do you have? And if you're going to floor plan, you got to have real estate. If you're going to have retail sales of parts, you need real estate, right? Right now, a lot of your customers are going to go to the big box stores to buy their lawn and garden equipment, their riding lawnmowers, snow blowers, what have you. Most of your customers are going to go online to eBay, Amazon to buy their parts, so that's less viable. So you don't need the real estate to take up for floor planning or carrying a lot of inventory. You need to gear up and set up yourself for just strictly repairs and maintenance of customers' machines. And when you do that, you want to kind of break it down some. And I think if I asked TJ, he could tell me, is you have your homeowner and then you have your commercial. The commercial guys, a lot of them try to do their own maintenance, I'll be honest with you. But if you can get some of those guys where you can explain to them time is money and you show that you're professional and you're treating their equipment like your own and getting it out and getting it back to them, it's very viable. Because at that point, now all you need is real estate for your repair area. And however many bays you need for however many guys are going to be working there. And then you need a stock room of some sort to carry your fast-moving parts. But you still need some real estate, and I know TJ knows this, that you can't carry everything. You can't carry every air filter. You can't carry every oil filter. You can carry the majority of them, but you can't carry them all. And I would assume in his case, he's probably accepting some customers bringing their own parts right with them. You know, that he's making the money on the repairs and doing the maintenance work on the equipment. He's not making money on parts. The parts are there just for convenience to get the stuff in and out and make your money. So if you're looking to get into this business and you're looking at what's the least amount of risk and what's the least amount of investment, repairs and maintenance. Yes. It's going to take you a while to build up clientele. But once you do and you show that with your honesty, integrity, and you learn to manage people, you have to know how to manage people. And it's no different than your local car mechanic. I mean, he's not carrying a ton of parts, but he's carrying different belts, oil filters, oil, spark plugs, fuel filters, stuff that he knows that he's going to need. And as you do this from year to year, you're going to start seeing, okay, I need to order this or this. But don't get it to the point you're ordering so far ahead, like with a pre-season, and then have something drastically change. Like somebody 2 blocks over just set up a repair business as well, and now you've had a shift. I think that if you keep the inventory low and you concentrate on just labor. So the second part of that is, how do you bill when it comes to that? See, now, TJ was saying he does like a flat rate, but it's $50 an hour. But he flat rates most services. Like you could say, well, an oil change is going to cost you this, or a service is going to cost you this plus parts. But for somebody like us that cover a wide spectrum, from a push mower to a farm tractor, that can mean a quart of oil or a pint of oil to 4 or 8 quarts of oil in one of the tractors. It's going to take more time to add the 8 quarts than it is the pint, right? So you have to figure out and break it down to its smallest point. What is included in the service? How many categories of services do we want to do? Push mower, snowblower, riding lawnmower, compact tractor. I know from experience that you're going to have a certain amount plus parts, because each machine is different. And each customer is going to be different in what they want on their equipment. I know guys that have John Deere mowers that insist on OEM John Deere. And we are not a John Deere dealer. Just so happens I grew up with boys that are a John Deere dealership. So that works out. I just give them a call and they set it aside. We go down and grab it. So you need to really sit down and define what levels you want to do. And then you want to figure it out so that you're not infringing on trying to make money for you in the shop. And I know for us, we manage our customers. So our peak is in the spring and then in the fall. That's when people are putting them away. We take half our customers then. In the spring, we take the other half. And then in between there, we have walk-ins, but new customers. But you want to get it set up so somehow you're maintaining the workload and you're bringing in revenue for the 12 months. Because I don't know of too many businesses that will open up in the spring and then shut down 1st of June and then not open back up, till fall if you got two different groups. You are open 12 months of the year. You are available 12 months of the year. You may have to bring in people to help you in the peak parts of that season. But I have a hard time letting people go. So I would assume that if you're going to go that direction, instead of having employees, maybe do a 1099 with them where they're self-employed and they're required to pay their own taxes and insurances and so forth. And they're charging you so much for their service and hourly for being there. And the shop is the one that makes the business, makes the money. Does that sound reasonable? So on that, balance your time with your family. Not a participation trophy actually involved. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. But when I'm saying risk, I'm not saying risk everything. And then finally, that this is a viable solution for many of you guys out there that will keep your doors open. And that is, get rid of floor planning. Get rid of, the sales department. Get rid of inventory that you don't need, that is hardly going to move. And concentrate on what the Chinese in the big box stores can't do. All right, and we'll get you tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.